Hey guys, new video here. Vaal Blight. This is the 3.5 version. It's kind of similar to the last League's version, but we've made some significant changes. There's some cool stuff going on with it, and so of course, as always, I'll do a map, kind of a juiced up map. This one has like minus max, more monster life, and some other weird stuff on there. And then I'm going to run domination because I have the goal. I was going to show you some gameplay, and then you can see if you're interested in seeing the rest of the guide. But overall, it is stronger than last league, but it has like very situational areas where it's good, and that is for clearing. Like if you want to clear like an absolute madman, I'll show you. Well, this is a breach, so I can't really clear that fast. But as you can see, how the Vaal Blight works is when you hit it, it has 3 expanding rings. Okay. Oh, I'm sustaining. Look at that. Sustaining my T16s. So it has 3 concentric rings, and each one actually gets bigger. See, the first one's like a little bit smaller, then the middle-sized one, and then the big boy ring. And it is basically screen wide. Sometimes if you get an actual massive shrine from the map, which gives you character size, AoE, and all that good stuff in life, your AoE will actually go off the screen. And if you remember from back in the days, like what was like 2.5 or something, where we actually used to have full screen AoE. Like every skill used to have the ability, as long as you socketed in your ink AoE gem, and as long as you maybe had a dying sun, which was also way burlier back then, it was screen wide AoE. And that's what this build is for, right? It is for clearing in an omnidirectional manner. This is a harbinger, so let me just go ahead and do this. As you see, like for the areas in which I am just standing around, I'm going to use my abyssal cry. Now I do have that socketed. It's on blood magic. Did I kill that harby? I think I killed that harby, right? And so the abyssal cry is kind of cool. It's not necessary, but I'll talk about it a little bit later. And then let's see. This layout's kind of weird. You know, the Spider Force kind of has like 3 different layouts. One of which is like really good, and one of which is kind of weird. And I know this map's going to take a little bit longer because I'm currently running the harbingers. I'm running the breach on there, but I just want to show, like, I guess some of the gameplay in all the scenarios, right, that you might encounter in a map. Now, this is definitely a mapping only build. I would not take this into any kind of boss. You know how like Shaper's like really not that hard anymore, but I wouldn't even really do Shaper with this, because I'll show you. You'll kind of see what I mean on the actual map boss. Currently, it is I believe Alira in this Bodhi Forest, right? And these breaches are going to kind of cut off by like 50% because it's spawned in a corner. But as you can see, I'm a runny boy, so that means I am using my primary. I'm not using a movement speed skill. I'm not using phase run. I can't because I press my ability so much, so that phase run would wear off nearly instantly. And then the main movement is brought to you by Queen of the Forest TM. So basically, you get the 50% from the Queen of the Forest. I'm going movement speed from Watcher's Eye. I'm going movement speed on my belt. Alchemist Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline. Pathfinder passives. All that good stuff leads to a pretty speedy boy. And maybe I'll even, you know what I'll do? I might even tag on at the end of this video. I might even tag on some acceleration shrine footage, because that's where the build gets real crazy, right? So as you can see, for the instances in which I'm standing still, I might pop an Abyssal Cry. So that's where you get the kind of the profane bloom from Occultist, where the mobs will explode for some extra damage there. It doesn't really do much, actually. It's just kind of cool to see it, and it's kind of cool where a situation is like if you encounter a strong box. See, like I'm kind of fast right here, right? If you encounter a strong box and you pop it, and then you pop your here, let me go kill the boss real quick. So this is where the build isn't that great. So as you can see, I'm hitting my my Blight and Vaal Blight, and then the boss is dead there. So not that great of a boss killer. It is a T16 map. It does have extra monster life, but sometimes it can get iffy. Like if you mismanage your stacks, like if you don't press your soul catcher in time, or for some reason like you press it too fast and the soul gain prevention is like eating up some extra stacks, it can get a little bit messy. And the fortification is also kind of weird. So like if you look at this fortification door, right, I'm just going to show you right here. Let me just do the fortification so you can see. I'll try not to get hit by these things right here. Okay, so as you can see, the fortification door is actually like pretty bad. right? So these are the betrayal guys here. So the damage is not that great for these. Like sometimes I even skip these because it's kind of annoying. Obviously this map is a little bit harder, but most of the time these guys are like, because I'm testing for doctor drops, magic find versus non-magic find currently on my stream, so I might even skip these entirely. But another thing you'll notice is that the blight skill that I use to supplement sometimes, I don't use it much, but when I do, it is free. I'll go over all the gearing and all the mechanics and how they work in the video. And mostly I'm making the video because my exclamation mark build command, oh, I'm double sustaining. My exclamation mark build command is out of date on my stream, so I gotta make this video and get the POB up so that people have the up-to-date information there. This map, like the drops are a little bit, feeling a little bit weak actually, even though I have a prophecy that hit a storm for 30% quant. But I'm gonna just try to finish this map real quick so we can just talk about the skill tree, the ascendancy, and the build overall. Okay, I'll try to start with like what is actually required on the build, because I got that question a lot as well. Like, what do you need to make this build work, right? And it's actually not much, but people, oh, triple sustaining, wow. It's not really much, but it is, how do I say this? It's like kind of confusing if you've never played a whale skill before. So I'm running all the way back here, and as you can see, this, a great thing about being a runny boy, right? Like when movement speed is your main form of travel, is that you can backtrack whenever you want, and it doesn't feel that bad because you get to where you're going extremely fast. I'm gonna use my dump tab here, dump all my garbage in there, and then okay, so we're ready. So first let's talk about the build. You are using the Vaal Blight most of the time. Okay, it is 6 linked, and the ascendancy that I've chosen to go for is a Pathfinder. Now, why did I choose to go Pathfinder? Well, this is a map clearing build, so I value movement speed and utility and quality of life improvements the most. And so Pathfinder gives me all of that. So when you take a skill like this, right, Vaal Blight, how can you use this? If you've seen my other videos on Spark, on Stormcall, the whale versions, well, what you're looking at is you need to get that soul gain prevention as close to 0 or 0 if you can, because if you don't, then when you press the skill, as you're casting, there's a delay between when you can gain the souls back to use it again. And if there's any kind of delay, especially if you have omnidirectional thing like Stormcall, Spark, Blight, the first few monsters hit, or sometimes the entire pack, like 50 monsters, if you have anything greater than 0 soul gain prevention, they will actually not give you the soul, so you can't use the skill again. Immediately, there's a little bit of a stutter there, right? So that's really bad. So if you look at this skill right here, I'm going to show you right now. So the soul gain prevention time currently is 2.55 because I haven't pushed my soul catcher. If I push my soul catcher right now, you see that? I push my soul catcher, and now it's at 0.16. And 0.16 is kind of like fine because the cast time is 0.3, right? So like as long as you're out of the cast time and you can move, those expanding rings later on will kill the monsters and give you the souls back in time. I'm gonna press my soul catcher one more time so you can see. Soul gain prevention is 0.16, cast time is 0.3. The rule of thumb is like for Spark, Stormcall, you'll be able to get it to 0 easily. But with this one, you actually can't unless you want to use like 2 time twists, which I wasn't willing to do. But I'll talk about the time twists in a second too. And so what that means is that the second and third expanding rings of the Blight will always grant you souls, okay? So the first one, if they're really close and they're a white monster, they die immediately, they might not. But any other mob, it does have a slight delay because it's damage over time. That first ring should even give you the monsters, right? Because they're probably not going to die in... as you can see, they're probably not going to die in 0.16 seconds, okay? And another good thing about the Pathfinder is that since this is a flask-based build, you want to keep all your flasks up, the Soul Catcher is one of the integral parts of this build. You can't play these whale skills without using the Soul Catcher. And because the Soul Catcher, if you saw there, when I pressed it, it didn't use any charges, right? So it's very hard to run out of these and not be able to hit all your flasks before using your whale skill. And you have to use your soul catcher at least before hitting your whale skill, or else like you just expend every charge and you will not be able to have multiple stacks, and you have to gather more souls. So tying into that playstyle, well, see this, you have nature's boon, so you regain charges on every flask. So you know where the pantheon here gives you a life flask gain, right? If you haven't used one recently, well, this one's way better, because look at this, it's just 3 charges every 3 seconds for all your flasks, and it's a 20% chance for flasks not to consume charges. Basically, if you hit all your flasks, there's on average going to be one of them that does not spend charges. That's fantastic. And then also the reduced LE damage taken is very nice. If you look at the these little tiny nodes, these are flask effectiveness. And why is this so good? This is so good because the flask effectiveness, what it does is it multiplies with the 40% reduced soul gain prevention, so it ticks down that soul gain prevention even more. And this is aided by things like Conqueror's Potency, which also give increased effect to make the little tick of the soul gain prevention even lower, right? It's fantastic. So okay, why is this one so great? Master Alchemist, anyone who plays Pathfinder knows that this is great because as long as you have a flask up, you can't be burned, shocked, ignited, right? Isn't that awesome? That's pretty darn cool. It means it saves you a possible of heat suffix on a flask. It saves you maybe you would have gone grounding if you had like a Vink Tart and you didn't have a way to like clear it or something, but like that's using Vink Tart for free is pretty cool as well, because it is a flask itself, so it clears itself. So this is amazing. I mean, 40% increased LE damage. I'm not an LE build, I'm a Chow's build, but this is really good for any other LE build, and most builds are LE these days, right? Even if you're an attack based build, you're probably mostly LE. And then the 20% chance to cause some ailments is also fantastic, right? Now this one is solely for the movement speed, 15% movement speed for free. That's pretty awesome. I don't attack at all in this build, so the attack doesn't do anything. And then the Nature's Reprisal, so this is increased Chow's damage. I am a completely Chow's build. All my damage is Chow's. And then 50 AoE, that is bigger than that's bigger than a level 20 increased AoE gem, right? So you basically, by taking this, you have an Ink AoE already, and when you stack that with things like a Dying Sun and another Ink AoE gem, you get that extra little bit of radius that makes the skill just it feels so good when you see it go off screen, right? So that's why I took this, and this one actually doesn't have any effect these two, so you don't need to take these, right? I think these are the best options. I do not believe that these are replaceable in any way. This one, you don't penetrate because you're not LE, and then you can't actually gain these flash charges because like you're not the build is damage over time, so you're not getting this. Now you could get this if you were to use like a Vink Tart or something, like so that nearby enemies are shocked, but like that's really dumb. So like we're not going to do that. So this is for this build, this is the skill tree, no substitutes. Okay, so that's why I picked Pathfinder. And then as for the skill tree, so once again, this is a damage over time, it is a Chow's damage, and it is a move speed build. Okay, and so there was a new affix added to this build in 3.5, and it is a completely new multiplier called non-ailment. If you look on this node right here, non-ailment Chow's damage over time multiplier. So things like Essence Drain, things like Contagion, things like it doesn't work with poisons, right? It's non-ailment. And then things like Blight, of course, Vaal Blight, any kind of Chow's damage dot, right, that is not poison, is multiplied. And this one's only 3%, but you can get it elsewhere on the tree. So for example, if I might try going over Shadow, as you can see, Shadow has some here, and here. Shadow also has Atrophy. If you go up through Atrophy, you can see how many multipliers there are there. You can get it on your wands. You can get it as pure rolls on your wands, which go up to 38%. So essentially, a little side note is that this build has been buffed in an order of magnitude. If you want to go for the min-maxed weapons, and if you want to go for the min-maxed like skill tree, you can think of it as, I want to say, over 2 support gems. Now that's not as you saw from the last map, it's still not that great, not that much crazy damage, but it is a big difference from what it was before. Okay, because if you take just the ailments that you can get on the tree, and you can also craft it on jewels now for 4%. I'll show you the jewels in a second here. Where are they? Where's some of my jewels? Like, well, not that one, but like this one has 4% on there. So basically, you can think of it as, you know how like if you take like a controlled destruction, right? What is controlled destruction? 45% more. You can get 38 on each wand, so that's like an extra support right there. That's 2, and then you can get all kinds of multiplier on the tree, right? So that's pretty darn cool. So it brings It brings the Chow's damage builds, well, maybe not, Estrogen is still very strong, but it brings the other ones like way more in line with some other dots, and I think that's amazing, a step in the right direction. Okay, so this is the tree. This build cannot leech. If you are a damage over time build, you're really not hitting, right? There's things that you, like other builds, like you have like a Vortex, and you have like Cold Snap and things like this. Like these have like a hit component as well, but this one does not. Even though it looks like that expanding wave and my blight is hitting them, it's actually not a hit. It is just a degen on them. So because of that, I can't leech. Now I can regen and I can avoid hits, and that's what I've gone. That's what I've kind of gone for right here. Acrobatics and phase acro to kind of like dodge some of the hits and hopefully some of the spell hits. There is, this makes a big difference. Stretches the tree a little bit, but at least you get a life nodes and the jewel socket nodes in the progression of getting to the phase acro. Okay, and in jewels you're really looking for like increased max life, and then spell damage affects blight. Okay, the cast speed affects blight because you get an animation faster, it feels speedier, feels more quality of life. And then the big one that you want is a 3 to 4% non-ailment damage over time multiplier there. That if you I think I have like 3 of those, so you could like fit 3 or 4 if you want, maybe 5 or 6. And if you get like 3 or 4, let's say you have 4, that's 16% more damage. You can essentially think of this as a free frenzy charge, right? That's on you all the time. And that's pretty badass. And so you can get that. And another thing that you're going to want to go, I go over here because I'm actually suffering from resistances because I'm using a lot of unique items. So what I went with here is I went with all these 3 resists. I go Green Nightmare, and this is how I get my frenzy charges. Because I could go, if I were to go the shadow route, I could go here, this jewel socket, and go overcharge, but I chose not to do that. I chose to do the more consistent option right here, and so that's, it works out pretty well. As you saw from the last map, I have frenzy charges up pretty much all the time, and I get the resist, and I go through the life wheel. Nothing to say here, big boy points here. 3-point jewel sockets, I thought that those were worth, once again, going for life and non-ailment multiplier there. This one's life, non-ailment multiplier, and then go through here. So here's some regen, because once again, we can only regen, and I have some regen on my gloves, which I'll talk about later. Here I have a Conqueror's Potency, so I believe that this is actually necessary because this makes your soul gain prevention from, I think, like 0.3 something to 0.16, and that's huge. Okay, you might not think that's huge, but it's kind of huge. Okay, especially if you're in close quarters with the monsters. This node right here, Skittering Runes, I'm using a double curse setup of Temp Chains and Despair, and so I thought, 20% increased effect, where it's like you can basically do 1.2 times the effect that you see on the PoE wiki. I thought it was pretty big. It's like a more multiplier to damage, more multiplier to slow. Feels good, but you don't have to take this. This is actually something that you can drop to if you're low level and you need to go somewhere else. Okay, and then going up here, obviously you have a 1-point jewel socket here. Grab that. Regen here. Once again, I need some regen. There's regen right here. Taking the life nodes, taking the AoE nodes. You actually don't need to take this and this and this. You can save 3 points by unspecking this, and this if you want to, because the AoE is so big already that you don't you won't miss it, right? And so that's 3 points right there. But for me, like, if I can get a little extra radius, I will, because I'm mapping, it just feels so good. And then other than that, I have the life over here, jewel socket over here. Once again, the ailment multiplier going up into here. This is 2 spreading rots. So the reason that I go spreading rot here is because if and the max was 13%. So this one is, how this jewel works is that if there's 40 intelligence in the radius, and it does not have to be allocated, by the way, it just has to be inside the radius somewhere on the tree, does not have to be allocated, right? You do not have to spend points on the intelligence. The enemies that are hindered by blight will take 25% increased damage, right? And what that means, if there's no other increased multipliers, that essentially you can take that as 25% more damage on the enemy, right? It's huge. And not only do you get 1 of these, you get 2 of these. The way, a little quick tip to check if it works, is if you just barely mouse over the edge of the jewel here, you see that? If it shows all the listings of the bonuses, it means that it works. It means you have the 40% in there, right? If it doesn't show some of those, right? Like if for example, if this like just showed 13% Chow's damage, then you know it doesn't work because there's not enough int in there. It's a little quick tip there in case you don't want to check. Okay, so in case you don't want to like count, right? And then this one, see, you get 2 of them, limited to 2, so it's 50% more, right? Pretty crazy. And then of course 13% increased damage on each one of them. This one, I actually don't need this one, okay? The reason I got Corrupting Blood, I just bought this earlier, but then I realized Corrupting Blood is an affix on the, I think it's a Bloodlines affix, and it's when you hit an enemy, you get a stack. So fast attacking, fast casting builds will get a lot of stacks of this, but you actually don't, you actually can't be inflicted by Corrupting Blood naturally on this build because you don't do any hits whatsoever. So you don't actually need this. But the reason I did the 1% reduced is because, as you see, I have 14 mana, and that helps me a little bit there. Once again, this build doesn't use mana. I'll show you exactly why in a second. Going up here into the corruption. So this is just a big multiplier node right here. If you don't have a +1 curse amulet, you can actually go 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 points into Whispers of Doom, and then you have the same. You can do the same curse setup that I'm doing. Okay. Obviously, the flash nodes are mandatory here because this will obviously multiply. The only flash you really care about is the Soul Catcher, right? And then I guess to some extent the Quicksilver, because you want to move around fast from pack to pack. Okay. So that's the skill tree. Where's my Watcher's Eye so I can talk about this? So if I take off my Clarity is on Blood Magic, by the way. If I take off my Clarity real quick, and you look at my mana, okay, do you see how I'm using mana? This is a 6ling. I'm regenning pretty fast, so I'm actually able to permacast it, right? But what about in maps that have less regen or no regen? Well, then I won't be able to cast this, right? So how do I get around that? Well, I use my Clarity, and what happens with this Watcher's Eye is that, of course, the Watcher's Eye is giving me movement speed when I have haste, or sorry, when I have grace. But the big thing here is I needed 7 total. I think it was like 6 or 7 minus total mana cost of skills when affected by Clarity. So by using Clarity, right, and this goes to -10, by the way, if you need more for some reason, if you have a different gem setup or whatever. So because I'm using the Clarity now, look, I get to cast Blight for free. So on this build, I never have any mana issues in any scenario. It's pretty badass. You see, I can cast this for free. No regen, doesn't matter because it's free. So look, I'll mouse over, and yeah, and now it's just a free Blight, and that's really awesome, right? Because the Blight stacks, you know, cast fast, and you get that extra supplemental damage if for whatever reason your Whale Blight is not up. Right, very glowy brain situation there, right? Now, how do I get the rest of it though? I have a ring with -9. This is craftable on the crafting bench. Okay, I'll go over that in a second too. So that's basically the skill tree. One big variant here, if you want to do it, is you can drop, like, basically you can drop, where is it? You can drop from this point, you can drop everything up until here. So you can basically unspec from this strength point to this strength point. Take away all this, okay, and then move it up into here, into here, or into here if you want to gain 5% increased skill effect duration, which will actually hurt you for the soul gain prevention. But you can like go here, up through here, and then you can go up into here and here, atrophy. You see? So once again, dropping this strength point to this strength point, and you can go all the way up here. Take that jewel socket all the way up here, and then either 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Going over here, get the resist, get the cold-hearted, go up here, get the written in blood, and then go directly to atrophy, right? Because look at this. Now this is 3% multiplied through, so that's 6, that's 9, and then that is 10. So that's 19% more damage, essentially half of a support gem, right? But even more, because it's 20% increased Chow's damage, right? So 30, 40, 50, 60% increased Chow's damage. And let me just show you this. So if you're thinking about like how much that, it's not that great, right? Increases are never really that great. But where's my blight? Okay, so you see how that's 28,000, right? I have the 40% increased blight damage here. So if I take it off, I go from 26,000, 26.5 to 28.7. So it's like a tiny bit, right? Close to 10%, close to a 10% gain there by having the 40%, and that one's like 50%. So you know, you could think about that. It costs a little bit more points, and you might need to drop some life. You'll lose a lot of life, but if you only care about the zoom, you can even drop things like the acrobatics to get the points necessary to go up there. Okay, so that's one variation that I might even try out later tonight. I think that's pretty cool. Now let's talk about the items and the gems. So So a question I always get is, well, two questions. Number one is, what do I need minimum to make this work? What do I need minimum to make this build work, okay? And I would say you either need 2 one-handers with the Bloodstained Affix, which is 20% reduced soul cost of the whale skills, and then you need the flask. And then obviously, you know, you need the Vaal Blight gem, right? But that's it, actually. If you want to use a two-hander, you can use a two-hander because the Bloodstained will be 40% reduced, right? So you save a Bloodstain, and then that craft, that's 20% non-element multiplier, that actually becomes 40% on the bench that you can craft yourself. So it's actually fine to use a two-hander. I chose 2 one-handers though, because like I literally like that implicit, and I just like the eventually maybe one day I'll get really lucky and be able to you know, craft some multi-mod stuff on there, but that's for another day. So all you really need is the Bloodstained Fossil weapon or weapons and the flask, and that's literally it. You don't need anything else. Like, not even joking. People think it's like some complicated build, but it's really not, right? You can build in a lot of ways, and so those are the requirements. So what did I go here with here? So on these wands, so this one is the things that matter for the build. Obviously, spell damage helps. Cast speed helps you get out of the animation faster, right? Which makes the build feel better, and makes the regular blight cast faster. So that's pretty nice. The crit chance doesn't do anything on here. Obviously, the bloodstained roll of 20%, and then the crafted 20% non-ailment chows damage over time multiplier. That is a prefix, by the way, so you have to have an open prefix for that. And then this one is pretty much exactly the same, except for this one has a natural roll. So distinction here is that if you're going to craft that damage over time multiplier, if you craft it from the bench on a one-hander, it is 20% maximum roll you can get. Craft on two-hander, it's 40%. Now, if you are going to go absolutely ham and you want a natural roll, see this one's tier 3. It's 28%. Now, let me show you tier 1 what that looks like right here. I crafted these wands last night on stream with the boys, and if you look right here, 38% as a T1 natural roll, right? It's like absolutely insane. Now, these I can't use, and the reason being they don't have a bloodstained roll, but these I'm going to use on my Death's Oath character. So as you can see, the wands, if you had T1, it can become absolutely crazy for Chow's damage, right? 38%. It's so nuts because this is a true multiplier. Like it's not increased. It's a more multiplier for the build, and 38%. It's essentially a skill gem, right? I just that like blows my mind how cool that is that they added that this league, right? If you go like occultist and things like that, you get even more of it. It's like wow, so cool. Okay, I really love that. I have like a real boner for that. Okay. So those are the weapons there. The chest, I'm using Queen of the Forest once again for move speed. It has resist, it has life, no big deal there. You don't have to use this. You can use whatever other chest you want. Maybe even using the thing that allows you to apply the hexproof enemies with the Cospre's purple shirt, that whatever that chest is, because hexproof maps, you know, you lose the despair, you lose the temp chains, could be a little bit iffy, or a little bit scary, right? So you could use that as well, but I choose Queen of the Forest because I want move speed. As for the gloves, I'm doing flesh and spirit. Reason being, it is one of the 3 gloves that gives rampage. It isn't crit, so I'm not going to use shadows and dust, and although the null and void is really good, if you notice on the maps, right, once again, I don't have leech and my regen's not that fast, and especially on no regen maps, I want to make sure that on Rampage, I can gain 20% life. And between 1 and 520 kills, you get 13 stacks of Rampage. So that's 260% life gained in the course of just killing those monsters. So it's fantastic. And I guess like granting an additional whale soul if you Rampage recently, I think it's okay too. But really, it's for that life regen. Best corruption on here would be +1 frenzy charges. You can't really, it doesn't crit, so you can't get the spell crit. You can't, +1 gems doesn't do anything. The other corruptions like Ellie weakness doesn't really do anything because you're not Ellie. You know, I guess you could get like temp chains curse on hit or something like that, or enfeeble. I guess that would work. Maybe you go trip. Ooh, maybe. Well, actually, no. I'm sorry. You don't hit, so you can't apply those. My bad. And so this is really the best one, I think. +1 frenzy charges, 4% more damage. You're always at max frenzy charges. Fantastic. Okay, as for, let's go over like the simple stuff first. Okay, the boots, basically just find boots that cap your resist. Resist is actually kind of iffy on my build because I'm using some uniques, but get a big move speed, big resist, and life booties, right? The enchant, if you were going to get one, I would say probably 16% attack and cast speed if you haven't killed, or if you've killed recently, or 10% movement speed if you haven't been hit recently. Those are probably the two best ones. You can't leech on this, so feels bad. So that's the booties there. Okay, as for the rings, so I am using an aspect of the spoder here because I didn't even put on my temp chain. Whoa, wow, I didn't put on my temp chains, and so I have temp chains to slow down the monsters, to spare to do big damage against the monsters. What does aspect of spoder do? Well, it stacks up to 3 times, slows them down a little bit, and when it stacks up to 3, which is 3 seconds on a single target mob, you're doing 15% more damage to them, right? So that's pretty damn good. Nice multiplier there. The bad thing is, like, you can't really like reduce. I don't think you can like reduce the mana reservation easily. Like maybe you can unset. I don't know if unset ring works where you put an enlighten in there, but like the mana cost is capped. That's why I have to use so much enlighten and stuff, right? And my mana is so bad. But I think it's worth it, and so that's crafted onto this ring. If you don't know how to get, if you go to open suffix, this is the aspect is a suffix. What you can do is you can find an open suffix ring that fits your needs, right? And then you can craft the aspect of the spider onto there as a suffix, and you can craft a prefix of minus mana cost of skills to get a free blight. Okay, that's how you make this ring. Otherwise, it's just getting a big resist and a life ring, right, to do this on. As for this ring, time twist. So time twist is like a very unused ring. It's not that great, but in this build, it's actually pretty cool because you get a little bit of cast speed. Sure, helps your blight, helps your will blight animation, but the mana regen doesn't really matter. Reduced skill effect duration. I'll just show you real quick. Okay, so if I take this off, look at my soul gain prevention, and I hit my soul catcher, 0.55. That is unacceptable, right? You put it on, you hit it again, look at that, 0.16, right? You save 0.4 seconds off the soul gain prevention by using this. And by using another one, you can actually get it to be 0, but I don't think that was necessary, okay? Value aspect of the spider too much. So use this ring on this build. And the roll goes from -10 to 10, so you might have the divine one if there's no 10% reduced skill effect duration one, okay? And then obviously if you want to go real glowy brain, really ham on the build, you can corrupt one once it's 10% reduced skill effect duration for like 16 to all resist. Oh my god, that's so badass, but I was too scared to do it on this one, okay? And then as for the amulet, so no real surprise here. The goal and the Solstice Virgil combo for big domination shrines. I roll domination on every map. It's super fun, and this just extends those shrines to be like just to ludicrous levels. You can watch my video, my previous video last week of how is it worth the goal Raven Mask, and yes, it's so worth. So that's why I'm using this combo. And also, I mean, also this ring, I forgot to say, unaffected by temp chains, it's pretty badass too, right? Because like when you don't have your warding flask up or you're empty, you know, you can you're just not slow. It's pretty cool. And then so these two, you know, I mean, life resist and then the 40% blight damage. You can also go despair curse effect 30%. You can go temp chains curse effect 30% if you're using that. These are all good enchants as well. And then as for the what else is, belt, header, you don't need a header. Okay, so this is like actually, like, people are gonna think I'm debating, but header actually doesn't really give much to the build, because if you look at the list of rare affixes, right, there's not much for dots. There's really not much for dots, and so it's kind of bad, but I'm using it because there's a good corruption. See this corruption? That's a max corruption, 12% increase in movement speed during any flask effect, and I want to be a speedy boy. As for the flask, I'm not using an abyssal jewel with onslaught, so I have to use a silver flask. It has warding, so it gets rid of the pesky things like elemental weakness and feeble, things like that at all times. Pathfinder, you barely use it. Barely have to use any of these flasks because they're up so long. Soul Catcher, I've already talked about this, is completely mandatory. The only roll you really care about is the 40%. Get 40% reduced soul gain prevention. Don't worry too much about the perfect 100% increased damage during effect, although it does help a little bit, not necessary. Okay, Alchemist Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline, just a zoom boy. Alchemist Jade Flask. Now this is what's good. On Pathfinder, you only need one of these to cap your evasion, because Queen of the Forest, you have to have 45,000 evasion. You see that? 45,000 evasion guarantees you the 50% movement speed modifier. So I'm going to hit it again. As you can see, 45,000, I am safe. On other builds, if you're not a Pathfinder, you might need to use a Stib Knight as well. And then the last one is a Dying Sun. Now this one is absolutely not necessary. This is only because if I have the flask effect, it'll give me like a radius or two, right? And I love seeing that extra radius. But beyond that, it's a little bit protection from what's it called? What's that like thing that follows you? The volatile. The volatile, it will protect you from that. Maybe from an Alira corpse explosion. Maybe a little bit. You know, maybe if you're uncapped on fire res or something, it'll help you a little bit as well. But definitely not necessary. In the place of this, you can use really anything else. Okay, whatever strikes your fancy. So overall, that's the build right there. I don't think there's anything else, much else to talk to. The playstyle is really good. You go in, your blight is free. You blight down the first pack of monsters, and you don't even have to wait for it to fill up. You can just hit your soul catcher, and then your max stacks is the 5 stacks. Okay. And oh, I'm sorry. The second question I got a lot was how do you get 5 stacks, right? And once again, that is a soul catcher, right? 25% reduced soul cost, and then 2 of these weapons, or one-handed or one two-handed weapon, for 40% reduced soul cost. Okay, also Conqueror's Potency helps too in terms of getting an extra stack. Okay, and so that's basically the build. It's really fun. The AoE is massive, and it's been a really good time, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. I might make another video once I try out the shadow variant by going up here. But yeah, if you want to try it, give it a try. It looks cool. It's purple. The MTX is, well, there's no MTX for Blight yet, but the purple lights and everything, it looks really great, and not very laggy either, because it doesn't have like the prolifts from an elementalist, doesn't have all the weird shatters. So overall, pretty good. Okay, that's the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Okay, bye everyone. Bye. Alright, just kidding, guys. Video's not over. I forgot to talk about my gem links. Okay, I forgot to talk about my gem links, so I was gonna add this to the end of the previous video. So what is Blight linked to? So Blight is linked to increased AoE. You don't really need this. You could go efficacy at the cost of expanding your soul gain prevention. So instead of having the soul gain be 0.16, it might be like 0.8 or something. It's a little bit dangerous, but not like, you know, out of the question. So ink AoE here, and then you can go void manipulation here. This is a more multiplier to the chow's damage. Less duration, this one is mandatory as well, and then the controlled destruction for the more multiplier, and then swift affliction for another more multiplier. This one actually helps because it's reduced duration of supported skills, right? So that's pretty cool there. All of these are actually mandatory except for the ink AoE. You can swap that out for probably efficacy. And then as for the gloves, I'm using efficacy support with increased duration, cast when damage taken, level 1, important there, and then Immortal Call level 3. That's the max level you can get on level 1, and the increased duration makes that go a little bit longer, and the efficacy also makes that go a tiny bit longer, you see? So it actually works, and this works with things like Whale Grace, Whale Haste, things like that as well, okay? And then, what else do we have here? We have on this right here, we have an Enlighten linked to Grace, right? Because we gotta get the mana cost down somehow, and then the Blasphemy Despair, right? So the Enlighten hits both auras right there, so very efficient use of these 4 links. In the helmet, I have, because the Solstice Virgil gives me a free Temp Chains, I have a Blasphemy to a Temp Chains, and then Empower and Enhance, because no matter what you link to this Temp Chains, the mana cost will still be 0. It is free, so you might as well juice it up as much as you want. Instead of this Empower, you could put in Ink AoE if you want, right? A little bit extra range to slow down enemies, like ranged enemies that might be attacking you, might be a little bit nice, but you don't have to. Empower's fine there. And then as for the right here, so I have a Blood Magic Clarity, because the Clarity, even at level 1, it reserves 57, and I only have 14 mana left, so I had to put Blood Magic it, and that's why you see 56 life reserved, right? Not that big a deal, and that way you get a free Blight. On here, I have a Summon Lightning Jolt. Now, Summon Lightning Jolt costs, I think, like, what, 56? Yeah, 56 mana. And so, obviously, can't cast that on mana, so I had to put that with a Blood Magic. So, that's how I get that guy out. And then, as for the Abyssal Cry, once again, this is not necessary. This is just for a little bit of fun when you're in a stationary, in stationary combat, like Harbinger, Breach, opening a strong box, you know, waiting for a delve. You're just standing there anyways, so I thought I would cast an Abyssal Cry. And the mana cost is high, higher than my 14 mana that I have, so I linked that with Blood Magic as well. And in my offhands, I'm just leveling in power enlightens with the quality wands here, right? And so that's actually the build. Okay, so that's the end of the build. Okay, thank you everyone. Thanks for watching my video. Bye.